Chapter 8. Changing Sides. Thibodeau burst out of the room and ran down to the spies' position, swords in hand. Bond tried frantically to disengage the windmill. 007 held one hand on his other wrist where the watch was and tried to aim it at a spot on the turbine where Darling was. "Bond, get away from the panel! I'll slice you both into pieces!" Thibodeau shouted from below. "A piercing thought, wouldn't you say, Daniel?" Bond questioned. "Perhaps our presence is putting a puncture in his plans," 007 responded. He looked for the perfect timing to shoot his grappling hook, but the turbine was too quick. Bond couldn't shut down the power, and the turbine was starting to make 007 dizzy, not to mention Darling, who was still trapped. 007 soon looked off towards the right and fired. The grappling hook shot into the air and wrapped around the back of the turbine blades. 007 pulled and pulled. The turbine started to slow and soon stalled. The control panel started throwing shocks towards Bond, and he soon backed away as it backfired and exploded. Shocks came from the turbine, and the blades stopped. 007 took off his watch and secured it to the railing of the platform. He then climbed the rope, untied Darling, and carried her down. "Darling, are you all right?" Eventually coming around, she nodded in assurance. 007 then pulled out a phone and sent a quick text. From the doors of the windmill came Thibodeau. He wielded his swords at the spies, and they dodged as much as they could. Bond raised his arms and started to swing punches. However, Thibodeau would either deflect the punches or get right back up. "You're certainly a sprightly fellow given your looks," 007 said. "You'd be surprised how well you keep in shape when you've made as many treks as I have," Thibodeau responded. "Perhaps it's time that you perform that move that you're well known for, Daniel's son," Bond jokingly said. The two dodged and fought off Thibodeau until the doors of the windmill opened, and out stepped Wendy, with Bond and 007's walthers. Thibodeau turned around, raising his swords, and that's when Wendy shot him to the ground. Bond, 007, and Darling made their way to the elevator to join Wendy. However, this wasn't Thibodeau's last stand. One of his swords deflected the bullet and only grazed his arm. "You fool! You should have known that your shots have always been off. You were more focused on men than your job. You hooker!" He slowly got up and charged the group until he froze. His face gave the impression of being surprised and in pain. A third sword came between Bond and 007, as well as Wendy and Darling. "I'm afraid second place is where you will stay, Mr. Thibodeau," Bond stated. "You and your silver swords," 007 concurred. "I believe you, gentlemen. I see your point," Thibodeau said, grasping the sword and collapsing. The group then looked behind them to see the sword came from Taylor, with her hand extended from holding her own sword. "Well, now that this one is firmly in the body of Mr. Thibodeau, you two owe me a new sword," Taylor said from behind the group. 007 immediately ran over to her and embraced her. "Oh, Darling, you got my text. I knew you would come," 007 said happily. "Did you call for me?" Darling said. 007 laughed at the choice of wording he used. "You should be happy that I was just able to be here. I was enjoying some leave time with Q, but no! You want me to come and save the day. Do I have that right?" "Yes, Taylor. I can see that Wonder Woman costume did wonders for you, training with your own sword." 3 squads of Thibodeau's soldiers came from a ladder that descended from the ceiling, 2 other side doors, and the main double doors. However, they were soon cornered by 2 other men who came into the area below in suits holding guns at them. "Perimeter secured, ma'am. Folks, I'm Agent Henderson," one shouted up. "And I'm Agent Lord. We work for Felix Leiter, CIA, and Miss Taylor." Bond and 007 were relieved. They all looked down to see Q waving and giving the OK symbol with his fingers. They all waved back. Wendy made her way over to Bond and slid her arm in his. "James, do you perhaps want to try baseball again and see how I play it?" Bond raised an eyebrow to her question.